We are on live today. We are
Okay,
doing a live
great.
session. Yeah, and
Thank
this
you. Thank you, Babu.
is one of the first dedicated session that we are doing for the MSMEs. So we have started conducting. We have decided that we would be doing the live streaming for our MSME business owners, and the knowledge based session, the knowledge based series would start. So please give your thoughts, and in 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, we will start the presentation and today's topic and agenda. Over to you, Sanjeev.
Okay, great. No, thank you so much. And I give a warm welcome to all the MSME owners, founders, our mentors, chartered accountants, and various other business associates who may have joined our session. Um, and I want to kind of briefly talk about what we are trying to do as we mentor as an organization. While very briefly about our organization, we call ourselves to be the problem solvers. And obviously, the world has many problems. Our focus has been on solving some of the problems with the corporates, in the education sector, as well as in the small businesses. While we've got teams in all the three areas, we work with some of the big names in the corporate space, and also, in the education sector, we've got more than 100 management educational institutions who actually work with We Mentor as part of the Yugma platform that we offer. So we look at solving some of those problems in the corporates and the education space. Today, however, we are focusing on our MSME partners, our MSME friends who run micro, small, and medium enterprises, because we all keep talking about, India going to a 5 trillion economy, a 10 trillion economy. And, a couple of days back, we were so happy about, India crossing the GDP of UK, and very, very soon, I think France and Japan probably would be in the target, or Germany. So we are very, shortly going to be really the third largest economy of the world. Now, obviously this is possible because of the all-rounded growth that the country needs to achieve, and it's kind of driven by the large players. That's what many of us think about. That the large corporations, the Reliance and the Birla Group and the Tata Group, they would contribute the maximum. But actually, if you look at some of the numbers, our small sector players, the micro, small, and medium enterprises, they contribute significantly as well. 35 to 40% of the country's GDP is contributed by them. And if we have to really achieve those lofty targets that we are setting for ourselves, MSMEs needs to be really supported, and they need to be professionalized with all the mentoring and support that they require, for them to grow, for them to accelerate, so that they can then work for the larger corporations, and the larger corporations in turn can then deliver the larger goods for the country, both in terms of meeting our domestic demand, as well as export markets. India has a huge opportunity, similar to in the IT space, to become probably the second largest manufacturing hub globally. And that can only be possible if we can work through and help support our micro, small, and medium enterprises. So I think this whole discussion or the live chat that I plan to host, and also my team would be participating. I do expect that my CXO mentors will be participating, and we've got 200 plus mentors, and I'll very briefly talk about them going forward. I think we expect that we'll bring this wealth of knowledge on this platform of Sarathi, so that the wider MSMEs benefit. The whole objective is to actually share our learnings, share the experience that we all bring on the table. Our mentors have 20 to 40 years of experience, in the industry, and mostly in corporates, as well as mid-sized companies, as well as startups. So that's the whole intent. Sarathi being one of the first incubators of MSME, we really want to kind of nurture, the small businesses that we are working with, making sure that we are able to provide end-to-end services through our ecosystem. That's the whole intent, Babu. When we are kind of going live today, is to really share our knowledge, our experience, so that our MSME friends benefit from this.
Yeah, this is great, Sanjeev, and presentation, and it's like great that we would be happy to start with the main presentation for today.
Absolutely. And when we talk about, while you project the presentation, when we talk about running a business, obviously, during the last 2.5 years, since I started interacting with small businesses, what I've been realizing is that there is so much of knowledge, there's so much of experience that our founders, MSME founders, have, especially in the domain, in the functional area, in the industry that they operate in. They are pretty deeply knowledged, they are pretty deeply experienced, and that one could very much realize when you talk to them. Recently I've been talking to one of the founders of a mid-sized company in the packaging space, and when I spoke to the current managing director, and his father, who is the founding person for this business, the kind of experience that he brings on the table, starting from literally zero to building a 150 crore plus company. I think the knowledge of the business, of the product, of the industry is fantastic. But I think I can also realize that he also had that those queries, those inherent need to know about some of the aspects of the business that he thinks we need help on. And there are many such MSMEs who have kind of shown their desire, and that's where, Babu, when we to design this program, we thought maybe let's start with some basics of financial management. And
Yes,
we know that it's a very huge topic. Is a big stream of management. But today, what I thought is we'll talk about some of the very basics of financial management. I know that many of the attendees today may know some of the basics. The objective is to have an all well-rounded view being presented, so that if you have any kind of a gap in awareness, then that can be bridged, and holistically, we can kind of build on the fundamentals of financial management. And going forward, my plan will be to then present next level intermediate programs and advanced programs in financial management, so that we can go more deeper into this subject.
yes, absolutely. So that's great, Sanjeev, and let's begin with the presentation. So over to you for the slideshow.
Just let me know, I'm projecting the slides. Are we
Yeah,
able to see that?
yeah, sure.
Are we able to see the slides?
1 second. Yeah, the slides are visible.
Okay, great. So let me start. I think the purpose of kind of sharing the slide is to give a bit of a direction to our discussion. And as I mentioned, the focus is on finance fundamentals, MSME founders. As the vertical, within vmentor.ai, as problem focus is to be the growth expert for the MSME, for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Now, let me share some bit about the challenges of the MSME world, how we see from our lens, based on some of the run. We are very conscious that we would scratch the surface of the MSME business. Uh, more than 6 crore entities and companies within this space. But one of the route that we took, and I want to talk about this so that we get a feeling, get a confidence about what we are trying to do. So when we try to understand what are the challenges that face, obviously we did research using some of the government sources. We kind of went through some secondary research, magazines, newspapers. I think these reports, the real challenges that MSME faces. So as an organization, we thought we will invest in the MSME sector, and that is where we extended our work around internship. The objective was twofold. One, provide opportunity to our management students go beyond corporates and actually see the life of medium enterprises, especially micro and small enterprises. Look at how these small companies run. How these companies are set up. What are the real challenges that they face. And thereby, use these bright students to actually do research on our MSMEs. Specific sectors like financial and accounting management, marketing and sales, human resource management, strategy, operations. Spread. I'm sure some of our participants would have seen on LinkedIn. We have till now almost run about 20 odd internships months with various colleges, including from IIT Delhi to Bharati Dasan Institute of Management to Symbiosis to Indira Institute of Management. Where and the outcome, a very insight into. And I just want to highlight that aspect here. What we see is biggest challenge, especially for micro and small enterprises, and people talk about it a lot. What pains me a bit is that we talk about it, but not much is done beyond saying banks are not supporting or money is not being available. I think the main thing is what can we do about it. So I will talk about that. That's the topic for today. But we also realize that you know the MSMEs needs to be heard. The MSME founders, somebody needs to sit with them and talk to them and listen to them, their vision, their feel about their business. How did they start? How did they come to this level? The 1x, 2x, 3x growth that they would have achieved. Maybe some of them have achieved 5x growth, and how they really ran the business. What kind of core team did they form? What kind of people did they really get together with? So it's about really understanding what strategy did MSMEs really follow, to focus on their product, their services, people, execution, process, and thereby some kind of culture has got built in those MSMEs, and mostly that culture is driven by the founder or the founder's family. As we talk, there are companies where the second generation, third generation, or fourth generation, founders are actually getting active. And that's another topic for a day that we will talk about. We are doing some study in that space as well. But the whole focus is that we want to really talk about financial management, funding. We want to talk about how modern technology can be deployed. People normally think about technology to be a very costly approach. We as an organization to support MSME has been thinking about tech in a box. A small company of 20 people doesn't need a complicated technology. They may simply need a very simple solution, a cloud-based storage, a email facility, some analytics, some reporting capability, and some basic IT infrastructure, using maybe a website to kind of reach out to the customers, some digital approach, a Facebook, some kind of a WhatsApp integration, that kind of very basic. So we are thinking about tech in a box as a solution for micro, small, and medium enterprises, just to give an example. But I think what would really help, if we all were to work in an ecosystem and help MSMEs, would be if we can really help them grow and scale 5x and 10x. While these terms are very popular and common in the startup world, when you talk to a MSME founder and say you can grow from 50 crore to 250 crore, and you would say you are joking. Is that really possible? So I think that possible word, the what we call as vision, in the larger corporates, or I call it fire in the belly. Does the founder really think about growing multiple times? And that thinking, that vision is really, really important. And we are here to listen to the founders and kind of work with them to see whether we can help them visualize that vision, and then help them through some professional management, adopt digital, bring sustainability angles, and help them move forward. So I just thought I'll highlight some of these aspects of the challenges that we see, and what we as an organization are doing. Now I will move to the main topic, which is the financial management, the basics of financial management. And let me narrate some of the real finance issues, as we call them, narrated by the MSME founders. When we have interviewed them, when we have spoken to them, this is what we hear from them. So, for example, one of them said, well, I don't understand finance, and my chartered accountant seems to be very busy. When he comes, he just kind of spends time looking at the accounting, checking, making some reports, getting some signatures from me. And unfortunately, we are not able to spend time because he's got so many clients that he needs to work with. And I keep thinking, how do I gain basic awareness on managing finance? How do I really manage money for my business? So that's something that a lot of MSME founders resonate with, and I recognize, and we kind of agree on that point, that most of us don't have a formal finance knowledge, because we haven't gone through a financial course, for example. And obviously our education system, whether it is the school education system or even the college education system, unfortunately, unless you do an MBA or a PGDM in finance or a BBA, you don't hear this word finance. Even in engineering colleges, there may be one subject on management, and they may just touch upon basic elements of financial management, but the word finance and how do we manage money is obviously not taught in schools, and some of our parents may teach us some bit of it, but it's not a complete teaching. So I think that lack of awareness is visible. Obviously, MSMEs are looking to expand. They see opportunity. You see a Make in India. You see all these performance-linked incentive schemes. You see all this discussion around exports, and you feel, well, I think I can expand. But the key question is, how do I raise funds for expansion? And how do I manage my working capital needs? What are the various sources available? And obviously, some of them have limited knowledge. Most of them don't know about it. Some of them also say, well, we keep hearing about loan offers from bank, but I'm not very sure, how do I apply? My chartered accountant says, well, it's a very cumbersome process. There's so many documents that you need to update. So many forms need to be filled. So it's better to look at other options. Leave this process of applying through banks. So many smaller companies, especially micro and smaller ones, they kind of not able to process through the banking channel. They also have this challenge about that the funds are stuck with customers. The deliveries have been made, payments are not being received in time. There are unsold inventory lying, and that means that for the new set of production, new raw material required, more money required, and therefore, how do I really manage my working capital, given that my receivables are there, I'm not able to get money from my customers, and inventory is lying unsold. What should I do? So that's another element. Also, our MSMEs, especially those who are now into the business for some time, obviously they know that there are institutions like SIDBI, NABARD, and some of the government organizations who provide funding. There are programs which are run for MSMEs. Every budget we hear about government doling out some scheme or the other. But how do I really apply for the program? How do I identify which program is suitable for me? I think that we've seen continues to be a significant challenge. Also, there are challenges around cost management. Quite a few of the MSMEs told me that, look, our parent company, the OEM for whom we work, they keep asking us to improve quality and reduce cost, and we don't know how to cost, and there is a fixed cost, and obviously they don't understand, the elements of, how do you really break down cost and probably, start looking at some tools to kind of, do some analysis and start reducing cost and things like that. Obviously, they need help on that. So these are some real finance issues, as we call them, and these have been narrated by our MSME founders, because that's the problem that they face today. And when we as an organization, therefore, kind of reflected on all this work done through primary and secondary research, we recognize that, mentorship or supporting our MSME founders through mentorship is really, really important, and that's where this whole vmentor.ai concept has come in. We are looking for building a global mentoring organization. Is going to be a tech driven but human intervened mentorship, and the whole focus is how do we really enhance, our MSMEs businesses, how do we really help them accelerate, how do we really build value for them, and how do we make sure that the ecosystem supporting the MSME, and that's what our symbol represents, is that how do we really build a strong ecosystem, whereby we have got complementary organizations working along with us, and we've started by doing that by, signing off with organizations like, MSME Business Forum of India, with Vadhwani Foundation and several other organizations. We've now onboarded 200 plus mentors in literally all aspects of the businesses, whether it is strategy, finance, marketing and sales, HR and people, digital, supply chain management, all aspects. ESG, then the environment, sustainability, and governance area. So we've now got this bunch of 200 plus mentors, and we plan to grow to 600 of those, to make sure that we have enough resources available and enough specialization available to help our MSMEs. So that's the kind of a background, that I see. Babu, I don't know whether there will be any questions. Do you see any questions coming up? Any comments coming up? I hope you can hear me, Babu.
Can you hear me, Sanjeev?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
So I'm saying we are lucky that one of our very senior member, Mr. Rajkumar Mathur, has joined us and the live stream. And Rajkumar ji has a couple of questions because he has been interacting with a lot of MSME owners in relation to the financial agenda, and he came up with a couple of questions. So he might address that.
Okay, wonderful. Happy to have that question.
So Rajkumar ji, if you are listening to me, so Rajkumar ji, you are live now, so you can ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon, Sanjeev ji.
Good afternoon, Rajkumar ji. I can hear you well.
Okay. See, this was basically related to some of my clients who were asking for the fund arrangements from the government of particularly the government banks and institutions, and they are finding a lot of difficulties in assessing, giving the assessment to them as per their requirement. And there's a lot of questions they are asking, which is sometimes they found is irrelevant for them to answer it, because what the business they are looking for the expansion, or somebody wants to start the new business, and they're asking some different kind of questions which are not seems to be they won't be relevant to for their business. So
Right.
basically they are asking that how they can get the help to resolve all those queries, and sometimes they are also no are not aware how to tackle those issues with them. So I think this is the one of the area where if we can help these MSME sectors or small MSME sectors, where they can pitch in with the bank to get the required amount of the loan.
No, absolutely, and that's the real problem, which I was talking about, and you've kind of given a live example of that, Rajkumarji. Thank you so much for that. And I think our intent. So while I will cover the basics of finance today, but maybe let me kind of share our plans on this. So as part of building the ecosystem, we are signing up with a few financial organizations who are focused on providing help and support to MSMEs. So the two or three different groups of organizations. One, we are signing off with various experts who understand the whole banking system, the NBFC system, the current fintech arrangements, and so that they can assess the MSME requirement. And we're trying to see if we can fasten this process of assessment and thereby be able to offer them some options that, this is option one, this is option two, this is option three, and how do we really help you prepare. In fact, the preparation aspect is what I'm going to talk about today for that. But that's one part of it. The second part of it is about actually trying to understand several government schemes. And again, we are onboarding experts in that space who understand the loan system of banks, SIDBI, NABARD, and other organizations, so that we exactly know what is the kind of financial statements or paperwork that our MSME needs to complete. And during the course of the work itself, let's help them be ready with some of those paperwork, some of those documentations. In this process, we're also talking to some of the banks so that we can actually onboard them as our partner banks, so that they become kind of one-stop solution for us. So that's another area that we're looking at. But very, very valid point, Rajkumar ji. And today, what I'm going to talk about is to focus on what are some of the very basics of finance that maybe our MSME founders, given that they are very busy in their own business, or of their lack of expertise or lack of exposure, may not be focusing on. And if we focus on these basics, then probably we will be much better prepared when it comes to the opportunity of applying for a loan through a bank or other financial institutions. Okay. Any
Great,
other
Rajkumar.
question?
Yeah. One more point, Mr. Sanjeev. They were also facing the difficulty when they are going and talking to the officials of the bank. They found there's some kind of the officials who were tackling those customers, and basically they are not very much, you can say, knowledgeable or experienced in talking about the bank's schemes to the customers. Particularly if they're asking some questions and they are getting some different answers which is not relevant what the questions being asked. So
Right.
another point is that the persons who are dealing sitting across the table, and if he is unable to understand the customer's requirements, so definitely the customer is going to be frustrated, and then what he wants to, he want to go to some other place, and like that he's moving around and he's losing his precious time and the money in getting the some loan to extend his business or to start his business. This is another area, gray area, which is to be basically worked on it.
No, absolutely. It's a great point you have made. And probably, that's where, probably we need to work with the banks that, that sense of ownership. See, many of the banks we know are driven by the targets, that, so let's say this sector needs to be given this much loan, and a lot of push is given for that. If there is a MSME target, then they may be working to kind of fulfill that target. I think more than the target, probably we know our banking system needs to look at what requirements are we fulfilling. Are we really enabling our founders to be encouraged, so that they kind of proactively come to the banks and they approach the banks, and they're able to understand the banking requirements in a much more simpler manner and things like that. So I think it's going to be a two-way work that we have to do. Probably we have to work with the banks as well to see how things can be simplified. We also, on the other side, maybe need to educate our MSME owners and MSME founders, so that you also understand some of the terminologies being used, because obviously banking officers and staff, they may use certain terminology assuming that the MSME founders know about it, and probably they would not be able to relate to that, and therefore there will be kind of question and answers going on saying, what does this mean, मुझे इसका मतलब समझ में नहीं आया, can you explain me this, and those kind of stuff. So I think maybe some kind of education would help, and this is just the starting point today from our side.
Yes, thank you, Sanjeev. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Babu. Maybe we will move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let me focus on this particular slide, and I'm going to talk about the whole offering for today. What are we really going to focus on? So as I mentioned earlier, that our education system, our the way our family life is run. Money is a very important element, as we all know. Without money, things cannot run. Neither businesses can run nor families can run. But the knowledge about managing money, how do I really optimize and use my money, obviously is not taught. And therefore you see that gap. I remember when I first got introduced to a bank, and I'm happy to share that, is that many years back, that must be early 80s, when my father took me to one of the banks called Allahabad Bank, and he said, in the bank you can open a savings account, and you can keep your money. But if your money is lying idle for a long time, you can convert that into a fixed deposit. You can also do recurring deposit, because as a child, every occasion you get some money, and that money can be kept in the bank, and you will earn interest. But imagine beyond that, that's what his awareness was, and the whole focus was, we get this much of money, we need to just spend within that, live within your budget, or live within the means, as we call it. And that was the level of awareness, that our parents probably had, and that's what they passed on to us. And but the world is getting complicated. Obviously, there are various types of institutions that are coming up. There are various ways in which money can be organized, and therefore that fundamental way of learning, how do we really understand and learn, is very, very important. So I'm going to highlight a few things. When a business is set up, if you think about, the business would need funding, and where would the funding come from? Typically in the startup stage, mostly the founders start with their own personal money, or they would use their family resources, family assets may be used. Some people may actually borrow from their friends to say, okay, I'm starting this business, would you like to be part of it, or would you like to kind of give me some short-term loan informally, for me to set up. So I think it typically, for MSME, I'm saying, starts with this kind of a funding. Obviously, we are at that stage mostly exposed to banks, because that's where we may have a banking channel that we know, we have got savings account. Suddenly this word current account comes into the picture, because the chartered accountant says you need to now open account for your company, and therefore a current account system comes in. And you also learn that, well, you're not going to earn any interest on the money that you keep there. But the most important thing is, well, you want to set up the company, and therefore you need funding, and you organize funding, and you kind of move on. Now, we know that when it comes to, really, when the business starts running, the need for working capital increases, the need for short-term funding increases, and that is where, short-term loans, overdraft facilities, and those kind of stuff come in. So therefore, as MSMEs, you need to be aware about the various channels. Obviously we all know about banks. Mostly public sector banks is what typically MSMEs are exposed to. But we now know that several private sector banks are also focused on micro, small, and medium enterprises. They have their own specific divisions through which they service. So that's the banking system. Now, in addition to the banks, you also now have NBFCs, the non-banking financial services companies, who actually are probably a bit faster in operating, because of the law that governs banking is much stricter than the law that governs NBFC. Obviously, things are changing now with NBFCs getting bigger and bigger. The laws are changing there as well, and things are getting complicated. But that's another option for you to actually rope into the financial system. Then there are small banks, which are coming up. There are cooperative banks which are there, and then there are the new age banks, as we call it, the fintechs, who are trying to use one option or the other. So for example, some kind of a working capital management by doing some bill discounting, that's coming out to be one of the options. So I think the first thing, as a MSME owner, probably you need to know is about what are the various options that I have within the financial system, and at what stage I am in the business, and how can I leverage that financial system. Now, I talked about SIDBI and NABARD, in the earlier points as well. And if you really try and find out, you will find that the Small Industries Development Bank of India, as it is called, SIDBI, they are the one who is the nodal agency or the nodal financial institution to give loans to small and micro enterprises and mid-sized enterprises. They have got a number of schemes. Now, the challenge there is to really understand, the various schemes, understand the documentation required for the schemes, and understand which schemes are really applicable for you, because there can be multiple types of schemes that may be potentially available. Now, because the financial system will require financial reporting, they will need you to submit certain statements. Therefore, I would like to focus on some of the basics of financial statements. What does it really mean, and how can you really prepare? And I know that most of you depend on your chartered accountants, but I think you knowing about these basics would be really, really helpful. And that's the reason, I thought that today, let's talk about some of the basics. Now,
Sanjeev, just holding you for a second.
Sure.
There is some technical error for which the LinkedIn live streaming has got some issue. So you are also speaking for a long time. So we will take a 5-minute pause, and in the meantime, we will rejoin. Okay, with the same link.
Okay. So should I hold on or rejoin?
No, you rejoin. I'm ending the stream now. We will restream in 5 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, very much.
Okay, so I'll carry on. I'm just conscious of time that we've got another 50 left. Loss statement. Can you take your products and its costing? Is a product profitable or not? That decision you can take. You can focus on the budget, and I'll tell in a bit more detail a bit later. So that's another thing you focus on. You can focus on, in financing, that investors, lenders, and vendors, they look at the income statement and understand whether it's really profitable, should associate with the company or not. So it's important, to have the profit and loss statement. Coming to the balance sheet, this is help. Let's say we create a balance sheet at the end of 31st March, So as on 31st March, it tells you what's the asset, what's the liability, what's the equity component that has been invested in the business. By looking at all the current assets and non-current liabilities, current liabilities, non-current liabilities, and the equities, and therefore we determine for our business. The balance sheet can be used for taking certain business decisions like spending. So if you know that you've got money in your balance sheet, then you can kind of design and have some spending plans, the liquidity in your business, and you also understand business, and therefore balance sheet statement becomes important. To the cash flow statement. The cash flow statement basically the money flow into the business and this. So what does it basically mean? That when you're running the business, and it's different to what we call as the profit and loss statement. It starts. So today, as on today, how much cash do you have, within the company, in your banks, and then you start looking at from operations, how much money are you adding, how much money is flowing in, then investments, what investments are coming in, financing, how much money is coming through finance, and the outgoing of some of the money that could be like interest and things like that. So it basically determines how much is cash is available for the company to continue to run the business. That's really important, because the cash is basically required to run the day-to-day business. If you don't have, let's say, money available today, or a cash not available today, then if you need to spend something tomorrow, from where will you spend? You'll have to now depend on some overdraft facility or some short-term loan facility and all that stuff. So regular cash flow therefore becomes very important, and it helps manage incoming and outgoing funds. It also gives you a view about your account receivable, that making sure that you receive cash from your customers, or you receive money from your customers in time, so that you can pay your expenses, which could be expenses in your running a business, your factory, paying salary to the staff, and things like that. Now, just to summarize, we talked about these three, different types of statements. It's important to really, bring some discipline into building this statement, because as you realize that these are typically three statements which may be required, which Rajkumar ji was asking, that, when you go to a bank, what are the documents that they will ask? So along with, maybe your registration document, are you registered as a MSME or not? Your Udyam Aadhaar, and some of these PAN card, those kind of documentation. The banks will then ask about your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet, and your cash flow. And therefore, it's important to kind of have this documentation ready, and understand as a founder that, what does this really mean. And if the bank officer wants you to explain, then you should be able to explain, in this, not in very great detail, but you should be able to at least cover some of the basics. And obviously your chartered accountant can help you get into more further details on the statements. So that's the main thing that I want to talk about today. Now, if you look at the other aspect, budgeting for MSME is equally important. As you realize, the P&L statement or the cash flow statement, how much money you have on a day-to-day basis becomes very, very important for sustainability and running of the business. Now, you keep hearing about a home budget, budget that, let's say, a homemaker kind of prepares. And what is that? How much money that you earn, or how much money that you are given, and how much money you spend. So I think, businesses really need to get into the discipline to kind of develop some kind of a budget, so that you can make sure that, you're not running out of cash, you're not running out of funding to run your business. Now, what are some of the key steps that you would like to follow? The most important thing is cost. Look at the cost of producing a product, producing the service. How much does it really cost in terms of the raw material, in terms of the other resources that you need to put in, the variable cost, the one time cost, the fixed cost, and things like that. Make sure that, the cost is understood. Then if required, you negotiate with your suppliers, negotiate cost with your suppliers, because that's the most important element that you need, to really understand, to make your budget. So remember, the budget is like you draw on a piece of paper on two sides. On one side, you have got all the income that's coming. On the other side, all the cost or the expenses that you're coming. So we're talking about all the costs being taken care of. Now think about your revenue. What product are you developing? What's the unit price? What's the estimate of, you selling some of these products, and what's the estimate of your revenue? So you write down the revenue. So we talked about cost, we talked about negotiating the cost and the revenue. And then that at a product level, the revenue minus the cost is what you are able to kind of get some kind of a gross profit margin. And then there are other expenses that you need to think about. Like, for example, there will be regular cash outflow that may be happening in your business. You maybe have to pay your rent, you may have to pay for your staff, you have to pay for other transportation expenses and other expenses. So those needs to be taken out, those needs to be also budgeted for. And then you also understand, therefore, that how much money, how much revenue I'm kind of getting, and what's the total cost that I'm getting, and therefore you can see the difference, revenue minus cost, how much money you are really saving. Now, in some companies and some industries, there may be a seasonality effect. That's also another important element that I think one needs to really look at, because maybe some products are sold more in the winter season, some are sold more in the summer season. For example, if you look at some of the products like coolers and air conditioners, and therefore if you are supplying to those industries, then there could be more demand for those components, for example. Similarly, if you are a cloth company, textile company, then maybe in the winters, in the winter wears, are being sold in higher volume, and therefore you need to kind of maintain that level of inventory, and therefore you need to kind of look at your cash flow, accordingly, depending on that. And then you need to set some spending goals for yourself, that if this is my budget, what percentage, should I put a limit on that? Let's say if I touch 70%, then somebody should raise an alarm. My system should be able to tell me that, look, you've already spent 70% of your budget, be careful now. Or you spend 80% of the budget. So have some kind of a trigger mechanism set, so that if, let's say, in 20 days time you end up spending 70%, and that one third of the month is still left, and only 30% of money is left, what do I really do? Then you can accordingly kind of think about your spending plans. And therefore, when you put all this together, you will be able to build budget. And I think the main thing about budget is about the discipline, being able to estimate what you're going to earn, being able to estimate what is the expenses. And typically for estimation, you can look at your past data as well, that what has been my monthly trend of my expenses, what has been the monthly trend of my receivables, how much I'm able to sell and able to get money immediately, how much money comes after 15 days, how much money comes after 30 days, and things like that. So I think that kind of a cash flow understanding will really help you budget and really have the money available to run your business. Last few minutes, let me focus on this financial awareness. I think it's really, really important, as I mentioned, that having financial preparedness is important. As a founder, you're not required to be an expert in financial management, but I think you need to understand the basics. Make sure that you talk to a chartered accountant and ask him or her to explain the profit and loss account. Understand how various expenses are captured. Understand how sales is getting captured, and what are the various receivables that are due to you, which customers, how much money is due, when is it coming, have that kind of a tracking available with you, so that you can really manage your cash flow together. So that understanding about profit and loss account, your balance sheet, and cash flow is really, really important. And I think if you spend some time with chartered accountants, also attend some training programs like we are organizing, and there are other organizations also who are organizing. There are MSME focused training organizations who do it. There are online learnings now available on this, and you can actually attend some of these learnings free of cost. Please do that, so that you can build your financial awareness. That's really, really important. So that's the broad thing, Babu, I wanted to cover today, as part of the MSME finance basics.
Hi, Sanjeev, great. And I think this is an amazing and phenomenal session taken by you. The whole of the MSME business community, MSME India Forum, and all the members of SME India Forum and other business forums associated with us, with the MSME, where they are working, should get benefit. And this is just the beginning, where WeMentor.ai is a global mentoring company. Our whole and sole objective is to give mentorship, to handhold the micro, small, and medium enterprises and help them, guide them throughout their journey of any kind of small, medium, and large projects where they are facing any kind of bottleneck, any challenges. So, this is exactly what we want to do. Our kind of offerings are many. We have been successful businesses, transformation, and other areas where we have done great in corporates, and similar kind of experience we would like to give to the MSME business. And this is just the beginning of our journey with uh, with a curated program, you can say, with a curated topic on which we are trying to figure out or trying to pick up the industry issues, and would discuss online and offline both. Today we have started the online event, wherein we would be calling more CXO mentors we are from diversified industry background, and would be talking on different topics related to your areas of concern. And also offline event, we are planning to host the MSME Charcha, the first of kind of event, offline event for exclusively and dedicatedly for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Very selected owners are invited for the Pune meetup, which is happening on 8th of this month after one day. But I promised to everybody that we would be expanding it, because we have got phenomenal responses in other cities of India where we have conducted this kind of event in Delhi, in Mumbai, and now in Pune based on some request. And we would take it up to the other cities too. So great talking to everybody, and thank you once again, Sanjeev, and thanks for your valuable time and sharing this knowledge to the whole community. And we are very happy and would be back soon.
Thank you, Babu, and thank you everyone for listening to us and watching us. And we will be back soon, as Babu says, with another topic, another discussion. Thank you very much, and have
Thank
a
you so
good
much.
rest of the day.
Bye bye. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.